deep inside Willowwish Woods, where silver mist curls between the trees and fireflies drift like tiny floating lanterns, lived a little rabbit named Pip Willowfoot. Pip was small, fluffy, and absolutely full of questions. He always wondered why the forest glowed at night, why the wind seemed to hum a special tune when he hopped, and why the stars twinkled just a little brighter above Willowwish than anywhere else in the world. But there was one mystery, one puzzle he wanted to solve more than anything. Why did the Glowberries only shine on one special night each year? Now, Glowberries weren't ordinary fruit. They were magical, dangling like tiny moons from glowing vines. They shimmered with a soft, golden light, hummed a gentle song, and filled the entire forest with a warm, comforting glow. All the animals of Willowwish Woods loved Glowberry Night. It was a time of celebration, a night that made them feel safe, happy, and hopeful for the year ahead. And tonight was Glowberry Night. Pip, with his heart full of courage, was ready to finally find his answer. Pip hopped to the very center of the woods, his little lantern bouncing on its strap. He was a little bit nervous, but his determination was much bigger than his fear. He wanted to witness the first Glowberry bloom, something no young creature in the forest had ever seen before. As he stood at the edge of a shimmering path, a gentle voice called his name. "Are you sure about this, Pip?" It was Luna, a beautiful white deer with fur that looked like it was speckled with stars. She lowered her antlers, which glowed faintly in the moonlight, her kind eyes full of concern. Pip looked up at her, his resolve firm. "I have to try, Luna," he said. "Just once. I need to know the forest's biggest secret." Luna smiled softly, a knowing, ancient sort of smile. "Then follow the moon path. It will guide you. But be careful, the woods are different tonight. More magical." Pip nodded, took a deep breath that filled his little chest, and set off down the shimmering path, a trail of light that only appeared on Glowberry Night. He hopped forward, his small lantern swinging, into the heart of the mystery. The deeper Pip ventured into the woods, the quieter everything became. There were no owl hoots, no cricket chirps. The usual nighttime sounds of the forest had faded away, replaced by a single, soft hum that seemed to come from the glowing vines weaving through the trees. It was a peaceful sound, like the forest was holding its breath. Finally, Pip reached a clearing, and in the center stood an enormous, ancient tree, the heartwood tree. Its bark shimmered with faint patterns, like constellations had been carefully carved into the wood. Twisting all around this magnificent tree were the Glowberry vines, their leaves and stems pulsing with a faint, expectant light. And then Pip heard it, a whisper. Not the wind, not a rustling leaf, but a real whisper, clear as a tiny bell. "Little traveler, why do you come?" Pip froze, his fur standing on end. He looked all around the empty clearing. Who said that?" he stammered, his voice barely a squeak. The vines rustled gently. One of the golden berries nearby pulsed with a warm, friendly light. "We did," they whispered, their voices a chorus of soft chimes. Pip's ears perked straight up in astonishment. "Glowberries can talk?" "Only tonight," they replied, their light brightening. "Only on the night we bloom." Pip took a hesitant step closer, his heart thumping with excitement, not fear. "Then please tell me," he said, his voice full of wonder. "Why do you shine only once a year? Why do you hide your magic for so long?" The vines paused, and the entire clearing seemed to glow brighter, as if they were gathering their thoughts, preparing to share a secret held for centuries. Finally, the soft, whispering chorus answered, "We shine to remind the forest that even in the deepest darkness, light always returns." Pip blinked, his little nose twitching. He had expected some grand, complicated spell or a hidden power source. "That's it? That's the secret?" "No," the Glowberries replied gently, their light softening around him like a warm blanket. "That is only part of it. The light, it comes from you." "Me?" Pip squeaked, pointing a paw at his own fluffy chest. "But I'm just a small rabbit." "You carry hope," the vines whispered. "You carry curiosity. You carry wonder. That is the spark that wakes our glow." We shine because the creatures of Willowwish, like you, still believe in magic. The vines began to curl tighter around the heartwood tree, pulsing like a gentle, rhythmic heartbeat. Pip's chest felt warm, a feeling that had nothing to do with his fur. No one had ever told him his own feelings could be so powerful. And tonight, the Glowberries continued, their collective voice growing stronger. You brought the brightest spark of all. As they spoke, Pip's own little lantern, which had been flickering softly, suddenly flared. It glowed twice as bright, casting long, dancing shadows across the clearing, its light mixing with the golden hum of the vines. Then a soft tremor ran through the ground. The vines around the heartwood tree lit up like a string of fireworks seen through water. And in one single, breathtaking wave of energy, the glowberries bloomed. Gold light burst across the clearing, an explosion of pure warmth and brilliance. It spread through the trees, racing from branch to branch, rising into the night sky like thousands of tiny, joyful suns. The entire forest, from the smallest moss patch to the tallest pine, was bathed in a light brighter than it had ever been before. At the edge of the clearing, Luna appeared, her eyes wide with awe. "Pip," she whispered, her voice filled with reverence. "You did it!" You saw the first bloom. Pip turned from the dazzling spectacle to the glowing vines, his heart overflowing with gratitude. "Thank you," he said, his voice soft but clear. "Thank you for telling me your secret." The glowberries shimmered warmly, their light caressing him. "Thank you," they whispered back, "for believing." When Pip returned to the village, lantern held high, the forest was alive with an unprecedented light. All the other animals gathered around him, their faces illuminated, their eyes full of questions. "What happened, Pip?" one asked. "Why is the forest brighter than ever before?" chirped another. "Did you see something magical?" Pip smiled a quiet, proud smile that reached his eyes. "Yes," he said softly, looking at all of his friends. "I did, and I learned that the magic is meant to be shared." That night, for the very first time in the history of Willowwish Woods, the glowberries stayed bright and beautiful until the sun rose at dawn. The forest glowed with a warmth, a joy, and a hope that seemed to sink into the very soil, promising to last all year long. And from that day on, Pip Willowfoot, the small, curious rabbit, was known by a new name, the rabbit who carried the light. Thank you so much for joining us for this story. If you enjoyed Pip's adventure, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you won't miss our next journey into a world of wonder. We'll see you next time.